Welcome back, Michael Wickerson. We are nearly done with ribbon tools. We're into transformations, then we'll do display, and then we'll jump into some pretty cool plugins. I have a little visual here that is exciting and it's very simple. I'm a limited node. Obviously, there will be some arrays in here, but let's just take a look at what's going on optically and visually. Go to Zoom Standard, Viewport Layout, Visibility. I think I just want standard zoom extends all. And there we go. We've got a pretty nice shape. I'm not sure why that click. There we go. So I've got this pretty nice geometry that I can find a pattern of curves and do some rotations. I actually like what optically happens on this pattern through an animation tool, which is pretty sweet. It might actually slow down. But let's just see what happens if I throw that through a little animation. 24, you get this kind of growth pattern of what's actually happening. Not bad. And so let's see, geometrically, let's find out what's happening. So let's go to shaded, and we'll take off our ungroup. And what have I done? Well, I did put in, I defaulted to a base plane. Let's jump in here and see what's going on. There it is, right in the middle of it. Once again, if you're having trouble with scripts when you load them up, it might be good to disconnect them, plug them back in. Now, I'm going to take it to a little bit. I'm having trouble with these older scripts as I load them up again. I'm going to print that one. I'm just going to do a little zoom extends on here. And there I can start to navigate a little better from my plane. I can get rid of that big form. 1 second. Excuse me. So there's a base plane, and I basically put a rectangle on it. And I like to do that, and I like the default on the rectangle that actually centers it at the 0, 0, 0. Center box also brought into that. And the deconstruct breadth is I allowed myself to make a box array. I needed a geometry, which I used cylinders, and I ran that through a couple of divisions, just to get the numbers and length. Into a kind of an interesting equation, probably a little playful for that, but I'm using that cylinder to go off into all these areas, and sometimes I did a little multiple curve array here and a linear array. Let's take a look at all the arrays. The box array is pretty simple. There it is. It just takes that geometry and we'll put that in X, Y, and Z count, and in doing so, I might want to bring that count back to see what I have, 1, 2, 3. And the spacing is obviously a little tight that they overlap. It's getting pretty interesting geometry, and you can look down on that to see what you actually have as a pattern. That's one way to create patterns because, like I said, these don't have any weight or mass in Rhino. They're infinitely big, infinitely small. You can actually find some nice patterns by actually playing with things in 3 dimensions. The rectangular array here, which is different from the box arrays. Obviously, you have to keep it in 2 dimensions, but I'm using a 3-dimensional form, the cylinder. The cylinder itself isn't capped, so that's why it's open. The curve array is nice. You just set that off in one direction to the curve array, and I ended up using a very interesting spiraling curve array to pass that through. And how did I generate that curve? Well, I did it through a little bit of cosine and sine trig, and had a little bit of fun with that, so I can take that through. How far do I want to push that? You can change your other numbers, and you can change your amplification as well to have a pretty nice model of this chain form. If I treated them like offset surfaces and I rotated every second one, I probably would have a pretty interesting chain if I capped it out in Rhino. The linear array is pretty nice, not too hard. Think about what you're doing. The polar array is something I use constantly, and what I did with that is I grabbed that nice kind of helix, expanding helix, as the array that moved out from the center point. It defaults, and the angle I just did is a full rotation. Anytime you have an angle option, I really don't like working in degrees, and I like to use pi, and then I'll run my range through a shortcut of 0.00 dot 2.00, and that gives me a nice use of lofting those forms. Let's just take a look at the curves and see how that one radiates all the way around. And it's a beautiful form as we move around. And if I was done, I could put that over into the loft. I have a really nice revolution that's made from that shape. I've been stuck on this type of fabrication and Rhino since the very beginning a few years back. So 3D array also shows you how I can use segments to break it up. And that's exactly what I did. Each segment then went through a polar array. So I had this one that went through the polar array, and the angle itself is playing off of this 2 pi. But you can see that I actually have some nice control pulling that back. What a nice piece of lofted geometry if I wanted to extend that, maybe not go all the way around. And I'm still staying true to one kind of axis, but I like the way these segments were laid. What I did was, parameters, steps, curves. I thought I actually took a few here and left a few out otherwise. The count is 10, you can change that, and then the kaleidoscope tool is absolutely fantastic. So I took that little bit of information, started to push this through, and you can see what you end up having here with segments and kaleidoscope. Wonderful control over some beautiful designs. I think I took it off into that geometry in the end. So that geometry, let's go back over. Let's do zoom extends all and center a few things. What a nice pattern. I think I'll actually just stay with this one. And take that one through. A little bit of a pattern of a rotation. Really beautiful work as that ends. If this is your data information, and I take this one through an anime, have I ever got a beautiful articulated GIF? Let's say I took it through 260 frames. What a beautiful tool to start to really understand what we can do with Grasshopper. I'll end on that note because curve control obviously leads to beautiful surface control, and these animations and patterns, if they don't provide a little bit of beauty or peace or mathematical unity in your mind of what would. So I'll leave that. Obviously, the transform tool set here under arrays is always in use. I see people doing it all the time. And let's group that one. Oh, sorry, we missed the final picture. There it is. There's the final picture. Let's group that final one and change that color to something decent. There you go. Go to zoom extends all of the canvas. What a lovely shape. And at any time you want to go back in and consider changing the size and scale of what's happening. If that was parametrically controlled alongside this full rotation of what's happening, you can see what's ending up beautifully happening. And you could always turn off that surface if you didn't want to see it. Or you could just only select this item and see what you have going on as well. So really nice patterns as I go through. All right. Thanks very much for watching. 7.5 minutes.